Oh, hi. It's Elizabeth Stone. Welcome to an invitation. Today, I invite you to learn the secret behind the secret enchiladas that we make here. Okay, here we go. I just want to point out this particular recipe is in my cookbook. If you don't have a copy of the cookbook, go online. You can order it from Amazon, or you can call us and get a signed copy if you want one. All right, so I'm going to start off. Enchiladas are a little bit of a labor-intensive process. So what I always say, if you're going to make enchiladas, make a lot of them because it's a process to get everything ready. What I always do when I'm making enchiladas, I get all the ingredients ready first so that when you start, you just have a process. So the first thing you want to do, these particular enchiladas, these are our ground beef and cheese enchiladas. We're doing them with corn tortillas, and then I'm going to make the secret sauce. And you know what? I'm going to tell you the secret, but you can't tell anybody. Okay, so we're going to start off. I've got a little bit of oil here in the skillet, and it's pretty hot. And you always want to run your tortillas through the oil when you're making enchiladas so that it seals the tortilla, but also makes it a little bit pliable so you can roll it. So I'm just going to put these in one at a time. It does not take long. You will see they're going to bubble a little bit, and you can hear them starting to sizzle. The oil may not be quite hot enough because you don't need them in there long. There, it's bubbling. I'm going to flip it over. If you leave them too long, they're going to start to get hard, and then you just want to let that oil drip off, or you want to drop the tortilla back in the oil. So, and then we're just going to stack it here on the plate. So I'm just going to do all of these really quickly. I'm going to make 8 today, but if I was really doing this for real, I'd try to make 30 or 40 at a time, because like I said, once you get started, it just is so much easier to make a lot. And as you can see, I'm not leaving these in long. They're going in. It's about 5 to 8 seconds on one side. They're starting to bubble. You can hear the sizzle. Then I'm going to flip it over, do the same thing to the other side, and out. Okay, so now we're going to make the filling. So the filling is very simple. It's onions. I've got about a half a cup of onions here that I'm going to put in the skillet. And I'm going to do just a tad of oil to help them cook a little bit faster. And we just basically want them to get nice and soft and brown. And what I call them is clarified. Clarified means that the onions start to look clear, but you can also touch them when they get soft to the touch, then they're ready to go. It's not going to hurt them if they brown a little bit. If they don't brown, that's okay, but I like to brown them a little bit. It gives them a little more flavor, and you get that caramelization on the onions. Okay, so we're going to let that go just a minute, and then we're going to add in a pound of ground beef. So a pound of ground beef is 16 ounces, and we usually do 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces per enchilada. So it's probably gonna make about 8 enchiladas. So that's how you're gonna get this out of there. So let me just finish this. You're browned a little bit, and now I'm gonna add this pound of ground beef in here. All right, so I'm just spreading this out. I'm gonna get it nice and cut up into little smaller pieces and mix the onions in. And you can already see it starting to brown. And then you just wanna cook this. You don't wanna do this over high heat because you don't wanna burn the meat and make it hard. So I've got it on medium heat, and we're just gonna let this cook for a few minutes until all the red is gone out of the meat. Okay, look, this is done. We've got some nice browned meat, and the onions are nice and soft. So I'm gonna turn this off, and now I'm gonna set this aside in a bowl. You wanna take this off the heat for a few minutes before you make the enchiladas, because this will be too hot for your hands when you start to roll them. I'm gonna set this on the side. So now we're going to make the secret sauce. And In a few minutes, I'm going to tell you why we call it secret sauce. But the good news is I'm going to tell you how to make the secret sauce. But I have to watch the recipe because there's quite a few ingredients in it that I need to pay attention to the quantities. So I'm going to start with a half a cup of oil. This is canola oil. You can use vegetable oil. I would not use olive oil. Olive oil is too heavy for this. And then we're going to use about a half a cup of flour. So for those of you that know what I'm doing, this is the beginning of a roux. If you want to learn how to make a roux, I do have another video that is exactly on making a roux. But right now we're just going to stir this together, and all that flour and oil is going to mix together. And you can see what's so interesting about making a roux with the oil and the flour. It just goes right together if you stir it, and you don't have any lumps in the flour. Same thing if you use butter. Sometimes when I'm doing a roux, I use butter. But for this particular recipe, I am going to use the oil. You can see it starting to bubble a little bit, which is what we want to do. I want to cook that. Now, I don't really want to brown this much. When you're doing a roux, you can cook it till it browns, but you can see it starting to bubble. What I want to do is I want to cook it at least for a minute or two, because we want to get that flour taste out of it. We don't want it to taste like flour when we eat it, but what we're really doing is we're creating a base to make a thickener for the sauce. And we're going to let that just cook for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to start to add my seasonings to it. I tend to smell it a little bit, and when you can smell the flour starting to cook, it just has a different aroma to it, and you can see now it's sort of turned a light brown. You can see how it's turning a light brown. So we're going to do that. And we've gone about a minute or so. And now we're going to add 2 tablespoons of chili powder. Okay? So this has been measured out, so I'm just going to go ahead and pour it in there. It's 2 tablespoons of chili powder. And you can see it starting to bubble. But you want to keep stirring it, because we do not, until we add some broth to it, we do not want this to get stuck to the bottom of the pan. All right, and then after the chili powder, we're going to do a tablespoon of garlic powder. And that's about a tablespoon of garlic powder. Teaspoon of cumin. So this is cumin. Love cumin. So I'm going to add a heaping teaspoon of cumin in there. And then we have a little salt. Sometimes I put coriander in here and sometimes I don't. And it calls for 1/4 teaspoon of salt, just a pinch of pepper. And so now we're going to mix this all up. Make sure it gets nice and mixed together. It's got a nice dark color to it. I'm going to add 2 cups of tomato sauce. So that's this. If you don't have tomato sauce, you can use marinara, or you can just use regular tomato sauce out of a can. So we're going to stir that in. And then we're going to add 5 cups of chicken broth. So this is about 2. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend it half chicken broth and half water, because sometimes with all chicken broth it gets too salty. So I'm going to do half chicken broth, half water. And then we're going to put that in there and stir this up really nicely. Look at that beautiful sauce. And I'm going to let it come to a boil, and then I'm going to turn it down and let it simmer for about 20 minutes. Look at this, friends. This is our enchilada sauce, our secret enchilada sauce. It's cooked for about 45 minutes, and it's reduced down, maybe not quite half, but almost in half. But look at that nice texture it's got to it. So this is a beautiful enchilada sauce. All right, so now we're going to actually make our enchiladas. But what I'm going to do is, again, I'm using one of these small pans that I like to use. These are, you can get at the grocery store, but if you want to do it in a Pyrex, you can do that too. But I'm going to start in the bottom, and we're going to put some of the sauce in the bottom. You always want to cover the entire bottom with sauce. So I just move it around so it's completely covered. And then I'm gonna take the tortillas. Now remember, we made these tortillas, and I just wanna show you something not to do, that I made this mistake. This one, see, it got very hard. And the reason it got hard is because when I sat these aside, I didn't put a towel over them. So, and I forgot to do that. So remember at home, when you make your tortillas ahead of time, set them aside, put a towel over them so they stay nice and moist and don't get crispy. This also could be because maybe I cooked it a little bit too long, but if you get one like this, you don't want to roll it because it's too hard. So I've got some nice soft ones here. And we are going to just start to build these. They're not hard to build. It's a little bit of sauce in the bottom. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. And then we have our ground beef and onions that we did. Some people like to put seasoning in their ground beef, and you can do that. You can add like a taco seasoning, but the secret sauce that we make is just beautiful and has a lot of flavor. And then I have a mixture of Monterey Jack and cheddar cheese that I'm going to put in here. And then we're going to roll them. So what I like to do is sort of pull the mixture towards me so it makes it nice and tight. And then we're going to roll these over so that the two pieces of the tortilla match each other. And you want to make sure this seam is on the bottom. So now I'm going to set that right into that sauce, and look at that. So I know a lot of you are thinking, why are these called secret enchiladas? So back when I was young, so young meaning I was in my early 20s, my older brother had a friend who happens to be a very famous musician from Houston, Texas, a guitarist. And he and my brother loved Mexican food and ate it together. And they decided that they were going to make these enchiladas and sell them. Well, guess who got to be in the kitchen rolling these enchiladas with them? Because we tested enchiladas and we tested them and we tested them. Well, eventually, the record company for which this famous musician worked, and I can't tell you who it is, might have to kill you, said, nope, you cannot sell enchiladas. So the recipe, which was a secret, went on to an early death, and I decided to bring it back. Now, I'm just going to say one thing about these enchiladas. These enchiladas have been on my menu since the beginning when I started my company 35 years ago. And the one thing I'm going to tell you is, they got legs. And that's the story of the secret enchiladas. And we're going to put these in here. All right, so now these are made. I'm going to put them all in this container. And you can see, like I said earlier, enchiladas are not something that's super easy to make. They're not hard to make, but they just take a lot of time. So now what we're going to do is I want to go ahead and warm these up. So we're going to put more sauce right on top. And you want to make sure the sauce always covers all of the tortillas so that when you're heating these, they do not get crispy. You don't want crispy tortillas when you're doing enchiladas. And then I'm going to take the rest of this mixture of Jack and cheddar cheese and pour it on there. Look at that. Doesn't that look good? All right. Now, I've just finished making these. I'm going to put them in the oven, 350 degrees, for about 20 minutes so they get nice and bubbly. If you decide to make these ahead of time, you can refrigerate them or even freeze them at this point and then bring them out and reheat them. If you're going to heat them again, you want to go 350 for about 30 to 40 minutes. So we'll be right back and we'll give these a taste. All right, here I come with these enchiladas. Look at these beautiful secret beef enchiladas. Look at that sauce on top. That is a true red enchilada sauce. If you are not from Texas, this is the real thing. We call these Tex-Mex enchiladas. Now, some of you are going to be looking at me and think, why in the world am I drinking a glass of champagne with Mexican food? Champagne goes with everything. The bubbles, the effervescence cuts through all of the heavy fat. If you like beer, you can drink a beer with it. I tend to love champagne, so I'm going to have some champagne. So now I'm just going to go ahead and pull one of these enchiladas out of here. I'm going to use my fork. I probably should use a spatula, but ooh, Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, look at that gooey, ooey gooey goodness. And the aroma is so yummy. All right, so let's cut right through the middle of this and see what it looks like inside. So we've got this beautiful beef and cheese inside, cheese and sauce on the outside. All right, let's take a little taste and see what we have here. Sure smells good. I hope it tastes as good as it smells. Here we go. That's the real thing. If you're not from Texas, you need to understand what Tex-Mex is. This is good Tex-Mex. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for listening to my story of the secret enchiladas. Remember, we are here to make your life easier when it comes to entertaining and cooking. Always have fun. Always make it easy. Most importantly, enjoy the experience. Cheers.